Let me start, Stel. Let me start with you. Your favourite people in the world, ENIC, have stuck £100 million in, and we're being told that this is just the start of money that's being pumped into the club. What's going on? Are the ENIC kids changing things? And is this a reason for Spurs fans to be hopeful rather than excited? A bit of word I use.
Well, good evening, everyone. Big up the chat. Smash a like, subscribe, all the good stuff. I'm jealous of Johnny, still in Cyprus. I wish I was still there. I'll tell you that. I've come back to the cold and the rain. ENIC. We don't know what the £100 million is for, right? If they said it's a war chest for transfers and player wages, you might begin to get a bit excited, but I doubt it will be. I'm sure they've got to build that hotel and all the luxury flats behind it and any other projects they've committed to. So I don't know if the 100 million is for players. Also, without sounding greedy, 100 million doesn't really do what we need. We need a lot more than that. So, I mean, if it gets us two £50 million players, another two Mohamed Kuduses, then great, brilliant. That's superb. But we need more. So I think for me, now that Levy's gone and they've got a couple of new faces on the board, we need to give it 2-3 years to really understand the direction and to understand if they're going to stick with the manager and to see where this money goes and what other money that comes into the club, how much more money comes in or how much doesn't, before I can really assess it. So for me, Sava, 100 million, yeah, it's a bit of a headline, isn't it? It's a nice PR grab at the moment.
Sean, a PR grab, 100 million, not actually that much in football terms. Are we all? I mean, it's 100 million more than the day before. What are you making of the announcement?
It feels like it was. It's been in the zeitgeist for a couple of months, right? We were kind of hearing about there was going to be this 100 million. The other payday loan thing, I didn't sort of give any credit to them for. Pardon the pun. The reality is that that's just, literally borrowing now, robbing Peter to pay Paul. This one, look, a step in the right direction. I'm very skeptical at the moment with regards to this ownership. I think that Stel is in the right line of thinking with myself there as well with regards PR. There's a rebrand. There's a bit of a lipstick on a pig thing going on. However, the proof is in the pudding. And the most positive thing out of that particular statement was the word initial in the title, and all of the noise has come out since that's saying that that the club are willing to drop more in, that there's more behind it. They're going to figure out what they need to make the club successful or whatever. But let's be honest, 100 million quid. First and foremost, we don't know what it's for. Second of all, there's a lot of other infrastructure projects that are going on. We know that that needs to be funded. And if that's not going to be funded by ENIC, then who's it going to be funded by? If it's going to be funded by debt, that's... and I was crunching the numbers earlier, by the way. Things like the hotel, the payoff on the hotel really isn't that staggering. If it costs 100 million quid, circa 100 to 150 million pounds to build it, put aside all the other parts of that phase 3, when you look at the numbers of how many rooms there are, the average price of a sort of semi-luxury hotel in Tottenham, what it could get at 80% occupancy, the sort of revenues it can generate, you're looking at about 20 million in revenue a year from it, which in hotels, the profit margins on it are relatively tight. So it's not like a needle mover either, even though I know it has to be there for other reasons for the Euro at the stadium and stuff. So when you're starting to put it all together in into the grand scheme of things, look, it all depends on what the money's there for. For me, if it's the first of another 200 million quid that will be with us before next summer, then great, right? Because I don't expect us to have a blowout January anyway. January windows are always more difficult. If you expect to sign 6 players in the summer, you expect to sign 2 in January, you usually get less than that. You usually get 4 or 5 in the summer and 1, maybe 2 at a push in January. It depends who you get, how easy they're to go after, and how much of that money's there for. For me, though, like I say, I'm going to wait and see. As long as there is more behind it, if it's just 100 million and it's to let them eat cake thing, then it's very underwhelming. And I don't think that much has changed from regards the father to the children. Like the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. But we shall see. We shall see. It's positive, like you say, Savo. It's better than not having it. Is it enough to make us competitive this season? I don't think so. But if this has more behind it, then maybe next season we can be challenging a little bit more closer to the top.
Lubo, the 100 million. It's interesting, right? Some people are going, oh, 100 million. Other people are going, oh, it's not a lot. Were you expecting this announcement? Is it as newsworthy as we're giving it, or is this just a thing that companies do?
I think it's what companies do. I think they were going to spend 100. There was a share rights issue, wasn't there, for 150 million pounds the other year, of which they spent 97. So you've got 53 here that's been moved along, plus another 47. That gives you the hundreds. My shares have been diluted a little bit more. That for me, that's all there is in terms of the hotel. For the hotel to work, geez, it's going to take about 30 years, I reckon, unless they can regenerate the area very, very quickly. For me, it's going to be a bit of a white elephant. Apart from tourists coming in for a few, maybe 30 or 40 events a year, I don't see how they're going to get anywhere near 80% occupancy. To be fair, it's going to cost them a fortune.
So are you thinking this money then is mainly for the hotel? Is that what we're saying?
No.
Just that the hotel has to be funded as well, and it has to be funded very quickly because it's like they've only got 2 seasons before the Euros, and it has to be ready before the Euros. It's going to cost 130 million quid to get that hotel built.
Is this not something they could do in partnership with a Hilton, for argument's sake? You know, just throwing one name out. With the 100 million going to football.
Yeah, but can I just say, Lubo, just for FYI, the Tavistock Group are in the hotel business. Okay, they built hotels in the Bahamas, so hence the reason why they can probably fund it somehow or other through the Tavistock Group, maybe a loan from the Tavistock Group, property company. To ENIC or in a JV, but they have definitely built hotel complexes out in America in partnership. So it's very possible that they could do that. But look, there's no doubt about it. Sean and I have spoken about it till we're blue in the face for months now. The 3 projects, the capital-intensive projects, the hotel, as Sean says, needs to be ready by 2028 to comply with the European Championships and holding it there. And that is an open-ended checkbook because it depends on the level of sophistication and luxury of the hotel. Some would say, well, should it be Premier Inn level because it's only at Tottenham? But if you're trying to attract people to come to a corporate event, don't forget Spurs hold corporate events every single day of the week during the week out with the football. So I would say it's medium to luxury end of the market. So that's going to put the price up. Then you've got White Webs, which is a big development. And then you've got the housing development over the road, which could be, again, separate. But I think we have to keep the money for the football completely separate. And I think what this basically does is it eases the cash flow of the club. If you couple this with the payday loan that they've taken against next year's earnings, or this year's earnings, should I say, in advance, I think that eases up the cash flow, which might have been a bit tricky. As Sean has said before, because we owe around about 250 million or more in transfer fees. Is that right, Sean? I'm trying to remember the number now. It's
that was as of the last accounts we saw. Yeah. The other thing, don't forget, and I'll shout Connor out on this one because he brought this to my attention 6 months ago and I wasn't aware. The football club, Johnny, you're right in saying that the football club should be entirely separate from these things, but it isn't. Because ENIC took 90 million quid out of the football club over the last 3 years to buy that plot of land and for the machinery and all that stuff that goes into those developments. So in essence, that £100 million that's come into the club is just replacing what they took out of the club to build hotels that are not really going to move the needle. As I said, when you crunch the numbers, and Luba, I'll take your point that 80% occupancy might be a stretch in Tottenham. I'm just saying that the general rule of thumb is that hotels try to get 80% occupancy for 365 days a year. And if it's going to be semi-luxury and the average price for them to be about 200 quid, something like that on average, and then you get about 40% additional revenue from hotel, bar, sales, restaurant, all that hospitality stuff, then the revenue that the hotel will make is about 22 million quid, of which in hotels, traditionally, according to what I've looked at, margins are about 25%, 20%. So you're looking at about 5, 6, 7 million pound profit per year. And that's before, if you have got debt that you've got to finance, that you've taken out to facilitate the process in the first place, all of that stuff has to get paid back, including the interest. So in terms of, is the hotel ever going to be a needle mover? Not for a long time. And on top of that, like with the money that that's being put in, is just repaying what's been taken out. So again, I go back to, when it comes to the Lewis children, especially when you consider, and I don't know whether the Brooklyn Eric deal was legit in the first place. He did put an expression of interest in. Obviously, we then found out that the geezer, was it Dan Gilbert, I think his name was, of the Cleveland Cavaliers, the basketball team. He was asked by the Telegraph whether or not he was part of the 12-man consortium, or his investment group, Rock Entertainment, was asked. And Rock Entertainment confirmed that they were looking at, they always look at domestic and international venues and properties in the sports field. And they did confirm that they recently looked at one in London, i.e. it must have been Tottenham, or it might have been West Ham, outside chance, but probably Tottenham. And they walked away. On the basis of that might have been why Brooklyn Eric said he wasn't going to put up an offer. He might have just been being a tie kicker and pissing around. But if there was truth to the story that came from Martin Lipton in The Sun, and it obviously came to some degree to be true, but if the detail was true that he had 1.2 billion quid's worth of capital to put into the football club as part of that overall takeover, then when you see that comparable, right, 100 million quid versus 12 times that from an NFL consortium, it at least gives you some basis of benchmark analysis to work with. And therefore, for me, like, when you put all that stuff together, I'm really not that plussed by the 100 million quid. I kind of feel like it's a stepping stone in the right direction, but it isn't really going to be a needle mover.
It's not for me. It's like it didn't even make me sit up and take notice. I've got to be honest with you. It was like a fly in the ointment. And I think that, though, the money that they took out to buy the white webs and thing, I think is right anyway, because it's going to be part and parcel of the club. The white webs development is going to drive revenue for the women's football team, which is doing very well, much better than it was last season under the Ho, not a Ho, the Ho. And also the fact that, the American football, which they didn't talk about in their submission. Most of the submission for that project was all about the women's game to get it through planning. But you'll see soon enough that the NFL will come in there, and they needed the money. So I've got no problem with that, because I think that will be paid back manyfold over the next 5-6 years, after the build. My concern is, if the hotel and these projects don't eat into the cash flow that will drive the investment into the club. None of us have fooled enough to think that 100 million and the payday loan is going to change anything at the club. But they did say initial investment. Okay. If they said that was the main investment, right, I would have been throwing my toys out the pram. So let's wait and see what happens. January in the summer will tell us all we need to know, because right now talk is very cheap. Most people are happy that Daniel's left the building. Is it a wolf in sheep's clothing? I reckon the majority of the fan base right now would say the former, wolf in sheep's clothing. But if they have changed and this leopard has changed its spots, then we'll find out soon enough. But till then, we have to surmise and guess.
The other thing also, Johnny, so just to say that ENIC's got about 13 different companies, I think, and the majority of them are property companies. And if my memory serves me correctly, in the last set of accounts, there was something like £374 million worth of cash spread across 7 or 8 of those companies.
No, that was misreported.
Yeah,
that company, Multi Club Insights, or MCO Insights, I think it was called, that presented themselves as an economic advisor to this, that, and the other, and a strategic consultant, and etc. They were just double stuffing the accounts, so they couldn't have been more wrong.
This is my problem with ENIC and Levy. Levy's gone, but ENIC is still here. This has been my biggest. It is an anger. I was going to say frustration, but it's an anger. They use the football club as a mechanism to cash flow money into infrastructure projects that doesn't benefit the first team the way we want to. It should benefit the first team, but it doesn't, because until we've got a team that resembles Poch's team, where we think we're going to win every game and we're going to play good football and we should be winning trophies, we're just having another conversation about the finances, the money, the movement of money, what are they going to do, and it just feels like we're going around in circles, but without Daniel Levy now. That's how it feels at the moment.
Do you know what it is, still? I think if it had just been Joe Lewis there and Daniel's gone and he's got Charrington on the board, he's got Vinay, then you're looking at it and you're thinking, do you know what? Nothing has changed. The hope that we've all got is that these kids have come in, they can see the potential. There's more interest from them than there was with the father in terms of footballing success. And I think that's the hope that all of us fans are hanging on to at the moment.
Yeah, but Lubo, until we see
sure,
lots of decent level players come into this club on a regular basis, I'm not going to be convinced. I'm not going to be convinced at all.
I think the quality of player coming in during the summer was higher than it has been for some time.
That's why I said consistently. It's got to happen in January. It's got to happen next summer. It's got to happen January again next summer. All right, January, I don't expect loads of players, but in the summer, I expect 3-4 players every summer of Kudus level. I really do. Otherwise, what's the point of this?
Yeah.
I was just going to say, still, you answered at the back end that I was going to say. Like, I do feel like it'll be very difficult to judge off the basis of 1 January, because very much it's dependent on whether the other club wants to let their player go mid-season. So, for example, the one that everyone keeps talking about, you know how we only talk about one player at a time in this fan base. So, like all summer it was Eze, right? Now, the only name I hear is Semenyo, right?
Who is not going to end up at Tottenham in the probability curve. He's wanted by 5 teams that are bigger draws than us.
Sure,
and all of them can make the argument that they need him just as much.
But my point on this was going to be, it's all well and good saying, well, let's go and prove what we're about in January and go and get, just using him for example, right? But if Bournemouth are sitting in a place where they're fighting for European football in January, are they going to want to turn around? Bearing in mind they're in absolutely no financial difficulties at all. They must be very rich at the moment. They've just sold Ouattara, Kirkes, Zabanyi, Hoyson, must be for 150, 160 million pounds.
For the new stadium.
Well, but they're not in difficulty, are they?
No.
So if anyone rocks up to them in January and goes, we'll give you 80 million, just ballpark, for Semenyo, they're not in a position where they have to go, oh, yeah.
Yeah, probably not.
They might be in a position where they go,
but the stadium build is a funny one.
But we won't listen to those offers in January when we're still in with a chance of qualifying.
Yeah, but Sava, do you know what it comes down to? I think it's the player. Like, you look at Eze, he was playing under a good manager. He won the FA Cup, had a brilliant season, but he still went to Arsenal. Why? Because he knows he can go to that next level. And I think Semenyo knows at some point he has to go to that next level, whether it's Spurs or not.
But January
He's going to force the exit. Is my point. He's going to say, "Look, I don't want to be here."
I'd be surprised. I think it'd be one of those most drawn out from January the 1st until January the 31st. It will be one of those stories that gets dragged out. He might end up leaving. One thing that's in the favour of people that are looking at him, I think, Johnny, you and I were talking about this the other day on the channel that shan't be named. Otherwise, we might wind up sell. But
say whatever you want, guys.
On FI, the reality is, Johnny, the European clubs, right, don't want to sell their best players in January because the vast majority of them haven't yet finished the European League.
Yeah, that's right.
And it kicks the can down the road. That's why 85% of the business that's done in January is done in the final days after the match day 8.
It's more.
Bournemouth haven't got that to worry about, have they? So
yeah, just
but they're in a position. My point is, they're in the position, right, that if anyone rocks up, I'm just using figures. I don't know the answer, right, but someone could rock up and go 80 million. Bournemouth can turn around and go, we want 100. Now, forget what we think he's worth. Bournemouth as the selling club with no financial difficulties can go, all right, you can go, Semenyo, but somebody's got to pay.
To know though, Saba, how much that stadium, because it's the most pathetic stadium upgrade I've ever seen, going from 14,000 to like 17.5.
Yeah, it's
a bit of a damp squib, right? It's a bit of a damp squib of a stadium upgrade, isn't it? But those things aren't cheap. Stadium upgrades are bloody expensive, aren't they? So
But the thing is with this is before the new format, you could get a deal done in January for a top European club because the Champions League was done and dusted in December.
December 27th,
right? Now it's right at the end of January, right? Which is a fuck up, really, because now there's a week window. So if you do fail, you got to wait for the team to fail in Europe to then maybe get your player.
Yeah,
and I think as of last January, which is the first sample size, the only sample size we have of the league format, the only team that was guaranteed qualification out of the Europa League was Lazio at that stage, going into the final 2 games, which happened in the final 2 weeks of January. And I think in the Champions League it was Liverpool. Everybody else, if I'm not mistaken, I could be mistaken on that, but I'm pretty sure everybody else still had the jeopardy of finishing outside the top 8 or outside the 24th downwards position.
I don't think Semenyo is going anywhere in January. That's my personal view. I don't think he's going anywhere in January.
I think we're. I don't know where this Semenyo link has come from, by the way. Like, I don't know whether it's a manufactured Spurs fan link. I think we'll probably go for more of your Fofana type link. I think that's probably where Spurs will go to, or maybe Kevin Schade and let that one sink in. But possibly Lookman on loan for 6 months or something. I don't know, but to your point earlier, Sean, it is a difficult window to operate in. It's not impossible, but it is difficult, and especially with the prices now what they are. Let's see who's available. Let's see what Spurs are made of. But I'm not going to. Obviously, I want them to do some business in January, but I don't think we can all go, right, oh, well, that January wasn't amazing. Nothing's changed. ENIC kids out. Do you know what I mean? I feel like we're going to need to be able to get through January and the summer to have that.
So no. Listen, I've been hearing ENIC out, Levy out for the last 3 years. If we don't, I expect the same energy to be applied from all the people that were Levy out and ENIC out, the Lubos of this world, the Stells. If by January the 2nd we haven't spent 100 million quid, I expect Brian Daigle to set up a camp outside Hotspur Way. I want there to be the same energy. Otherwise, I'm calling them all having the wool pulled over their eyes by the bait and switch that is a PR campaign. And Lubo, you're number one on my priority list in that regard, bro. Consistency.
No, Sean, you're right. If ENIC don't make some signings this January, at least minimum one, and maybe a second on some kind of loan deal in areas we need, 100%, you're right. 100%. This team needs players in January. There's no doubt about it.
It's got to be a quality player. I don't want to see that Spurs are going and buying an 18-year-old from Iceland or something because we need a left wing.
Yeah, it's got to be a real.
I remember the uproar. I'm speaking about this with Sean on the show that shouldn't be mentioned, but we we spoke about the fact that the uproar in the fan base had a complete meltdown when, right at the death, we signed Bentancur and Kulu, right? And everyone said, "Oh my God, what is going on? This club's finished." Yet those were that was probably the two best players we signed in the January transfer window for many, many, many years. And I think, to find those type of players to have that much of an effect on the rest of our season as it did that season will be a tough call. But, if we do, look, we are led to believe, according to Thomas Frank, that they're already having discussions in this international break, identifying the targets, and we shall see, because we would like to see that some deal is reached out. They reach out to the camp of Ed players to find out whether there really is real interest, number one, and whether the club is willing to sell. Because if we can get those deals done in early January, then, we could have a strong second half of the season.
Johnny, I think you're looking at players who are not getting in the first team, who want to go to America in the World Cup, and that are going to be desperate to play, desperate for game time. And that's where loans are going to come in.
Well, they were Lubo. Those were Juventus rejects, apparently.
Yeah.
Weren't they?
Well, they did. They helped turn that second half of the season around, and we finished fourth in the end, didn't we? So it was, it worked out very well. I think I think there'll be players there in January that Spurs can go for, purely because you got the World Cup factor.
Yeah, but does that mean is that maybe part of the rationale then why you would make the deal permanent for Polinia early, so that it frees up a loan space? Because the last thing you really want to do is go and sign a player who would come to you now purely because he's got 6 months before the World Cup. But ultimately, we've seen it before, right? With players that come with when they first come to the club, and not just our club, but others as well. You think back to Adebayor, right? Who was so transparent with his capabilities, and they always came alive just at the time when there was a new contract around the corner. He earned himself a new contract and he put his feet up. And it's a double-edged sword. Looking at players that are, short-term ambitious, short-term desperate to play, want to force their, the mind of the manager for the international team, etc. But I don't know if you want to sign those guys on permanent deals if they're not perfect for your club anyway, and you're just looking at them because there's more of a motivation for them to leave the club where they're not quite getting the minutes. Then surely a loan deal is all you want them for in January.
Pretty much.
I think, let's be honest as well. Any top club, they're not waiting until January to speak to players' agents, right? They'll be speaking to players' agents right now, aren't they? Saying, hey, we want your guy. What's the situation now? What's it going to most likely look like in January? Would he move? Does the World Cup have a factor? Are the club going to let him go? What are they going to... All of these different things will be talked about now, right? I know some people feel like you get to the 1st of January and then you start ringing agents, but it's all happening in the background right now. So I think it's going to be a very interesting January, but lots of people are ready and primed, aren't they? To right, come on, ENIC. You told us now we're going to be different. You want sporting success. You're turning down expressions of interest to buy the club. Well, show us why. So I think it's going to be really interesting. I'm going to do some super chats and then we'll move on if that's okay with everybody else.
Yep.
Just for anybody who wants to know, in the World Cup qualifiers right now, Wales are losing at half time, 2-1. They took the lead and they're now 2-1 down. Brennan Johnson was dropped for that game. Bergvall, Sweden are 1-0 down at home to Kosovo. Just so you know, if Kosovo win that game, I'm pretty sure it means that Sweden won't be at next year's World Cup. So that's a big 45 minutes of football coming up for Sweden.
Can you imagine? This is what we talk about. Having great players doesn't make a great team. It's how the team blend. When you look at the names on that team, Isak, Gyökeres, there's so many good players in that team that they should be doing far better You know, they should be doing as well as Spain.
They're rock bottom. They haven't won a game yet.
Not
But if they lose this game, Kosovo are 6 points ahead of them with 2 games to go, a superior goal difference. So this is going to be interesting. Anyway, let's look at some of the super chats. By the way, you guys smash the like button, please.